Well, so let's start our discussions. I have in the studio, it's a privilege really, the General Secretary of the Christian Council of Ghana, the Reverend Dr. Opuni Frimpong, and they're just coming through their annual, how do you call it? General meeting, and they're out with their communique. What does the communique say, sir?
Yeah, the AGM tried to review our performance the past year, and out of that, some aspects of the communique seek to address our internal challenges, but because of our partnership with government, with civil society and all that, we also tried some areas that need concern as a nation. So there are aspects that seek to address national issues.
And your communique is, apart from talking on education, etc., you even decided to border your heads about marijuana smoking and legalization and all. What had the church got to do with it?
Yeah, you know, recently we've been having some public discussions on whether such drug must be legalized or not. For now, even though those who are going for the legalization are using countries like Netherlands as case study, but you go to those countries, they have rehabilitation centers, they have such structures that help rehabilitate people who are into drugs as a result of accessibility, as a result of the legalization. Our part of the world, if you go to some of the mental hospitals, they tell you the number of young people who are having mental challenges as a result of drugs. And just there, you push them there, and even when they are back to society, getting them integrated is a problem. You don't solve all this problem and you jump into legalization and you realize you are not ready for it. So we say, as a country, let's accept it. Even though it's true elsewhere, they've been able to go to that extent. We are not ready for that.
Okay, now let's tackle it, your communique. Let's start with education. The issue about, for example, you said the government it should be commended for its decision to make senior high school progressively free beginning from 2015. Now you're talking politics.
We are not talking politics. If you mean politics, is NDC, NPP. But we are talking about development. We are talking about national interest. Let's draw lines between political interest and national interest. Certain things are political interest. There are interests of MPP and CPP and all that. But we are in together. For instance, education is key to national development, and it affects all of us. So if you all know education is good, and I must say, in fact, in the history of this country, even before government joined education, the churches were already there. The churches started education in this country before the colonial government joined. And as at now, almost all the best second cycle institutions in this country belong to the churches. So when you talk about education, even though it is true, sometimes you get the impression that education has been politicized in this country. But the fact remains that the churches have a very prominent role to play in educational development.
So you're big stakeholders.
Exactly.
Your major stakeholders.
Exactly. In that case, we don't come in as, say, a manifesto, somebody's political agenda, but we come into education as national development, you know, as national interest, something that affects all of us. So not what politicians are doing with education.
But the point is that on the platforms in the church, you don't preach about education. You preach about basic moral principles and how they influence livelihoods, society, etc.
No, when we go to church, normal Sunday church service, yes, you'll be talking about the need for you to put your trust in God. But if the church is relevant, the church must respond to some of the things we are telling our people. The prayers our members pray. For instance, somebody needs education for his or her child, and you are praying. That is what you do in church. But beyond prayer, the leadership of the church will go back to the drawing board and say, how can we also make education accessible? So part of the money you collect, you set up school. Now you see the churches are setting up universities and all that. I must say, we have other programs. There are such AGMs and assemblies. That level of leadership, of planning, that is where you discuss some of these things. But normal worship service, then yes, you are right. It's more of prayer, put your trust in God. But we do these things also as part of church activity.
During your discussions, your annual general meeting, that very subject, I believe recently we've had a lot more of the missions, the missions come to talk about the return of the mission schools back to the original owners or the church. Did it come up for discussion?
Exactly.
What were your conclusions?
Exactly. You see, like I said earlier on, education in this country was started by the churches before the colonial government came in. The colonial government came in with some support to the churches. Later on, had what we call government-assisted school. The churches acquired their land, built their facilities. Government came in to support payment of salary. So it was a kind of partnership that the churches and the government entered into. I must say, along the line, the churches felt a bit marginalized, felt a bit sidelined. And so, for instance, when Mr. Stuart Gabriel was the Minister of Education, he set up a committee to review the partnership because of the complaints that the churches were making. Wonderful recommendations were made. They were not implemented, I must say. And when Professor Fobi became the Minister of Education, he also set up a committee under Professor Ansu Chireme to review the partnership. Wonderful recommendations were made. Again, they've not been implemented. One is that annually, the Director General of GES must meet the heads of churches, the bishops, moderators, presiding bishops, to review, quality of education, discipline and facility and all that.
Even though the schools haven't returned to government?
Yes.
Just because you're stakeholders?
No,
or just because
the schools belong to us.
Just because the schools originally belong to you?
Yes. Only that
they still belong to you.
Yes, but
they are now run by government.
Exactly.
That's the whole concept.
Yes, but
okay. So now you want the schools to come back to you?
No, we are saying that the partnership must be respected. At the moment, for instance...
No, that's English. Please clarify. Be simple. What do you mean by the partnership should be respected? You want the schools to return to you or not?
You see, I have entered into partnership agreement with you that I have my school, I have my facility. You are coming in to help us pay teachers, and in the process you are also kind of, because the upper hand the government may have through GES, help us run the school.
In terms of...
Yeah, I mean...
everything.
Yes.
Monetarily, giving subsistence to the schools, etc.
Exactly, but it doesn't mean you've taken over. So we have what we call the units, the various churches, they have their units, regional managers of schools and all that. And they are also into the whole structure of running education in this country. Now we got to a point, for instance, at the moment, some of the heads are even changing the names of our schools.
I'll come to that. It's I think point 5-6 of your communique. Now, if you're saying that the school should perhaps return to the missions in the way it was formerly or in the formative years, it means that you have identified certain inefficiencies by which government or the state, let's use the state, is running the schools.
Exactly. You see, we have problem about quality of education. Now you go into some of the communities, the past 5 years, children are recording 0%, BEC, every year. The whole candidate, 0%.
0% means what?
Nobody was able to pass. And you have that by, say, 4 years.
You mean the whole of the school, everybody got the worst grade?
Yeah, exactly. And not just 1 year, but 3 years.
Consistently?
Exactly.
In some parts of the country?
Yes. And we are worried. Why should I set up my school? Government came in to help me run the school, and this is what I'm getting. You see, the infrastructure. The churches, yes, build their facilities. Now GS is running, but you bring heads to my school, the head doesn't recognize the church leadership, they don't listen to us in any way, but then you call the churches, come and maintain the building, and the churches will tell you, you don't respect us, you don't recognize us in anything, you only call us to come and repair the broken doors and all that. You see, and again, discipline in our schools. When the churches were running their schools fully, at least a bishop in an area had some level of control over the teachers in the schools, in the Catholic school. So the bishop can come and say, if you are teaching in a Catholic school, you can't come to school late, you can't come to school drunk. You see,
can't smoke.
At the moment,
you can't behave untold,
exactly.
etc.
Because when you are talking about discipline in the school, you don't start from the children, you start from the teachers. You need disciplined teachers to have disciplined institutions. You see, now you have teachers who may go to school late, who may do all kinds of things, and the pastors, the bishops don't have a say. They are supposed to
just because the override responsibility and supervision has been given to the Ghana Education Service, and so they don't think that you have an overall responsibility towards them. Okay. So now, how will you start? You're putting this out in a communique. Have you started dialoguing with government so that you find an amicable solution or resolution to the current difficulties or challenges you have with the way the schools are being run?
I must even say the issue has been raised on the floor of Parliament.
Well, I know that.
Recently.
Well, we report on Parliament, so we know that.
Okay. And so that is the stand we have gone, as a question you just asked. Over the years, the churches have been writing not only to the current administration, the previous government, that we feel sidelined, we feel marginalized. So letters have been written again and again. And of course, like I said, committees have been set up as a response of the complaint the churches have been made. Spirit Gabriel was NDC administration, Professor Fobi was MPP administration. Of course, they've made effort. All the committees I mentioned earlier on are signs that they want to respond to the request the churches have been making. Of course, recommendations have been made. We want Professor Ansu Chireme's recommendations to be implemented. You know, so that we have complained.
So apart from what you told me about the Professor Ansu Chireme's, and you have to pardon me, I haven't read the report, and since you're very much apprised with its content, can you apprise me whatever the content are? Okay.
In fact, one of the key principles in that report is that the partnership must be respected.
And then the annual deliberations?
And that, for instance, the unit blocks, you see, we have Presby education, Methodist education also must be involved. They must be involved in recruitment, for instance, getting teachers into, say, the Catholic school, Anglican schools, and all that. Now, that has been the step. If you go to, I wish we have somebody from GES in this discussion. You don't have that easily, you know. So even the unit blocks are now being sidelined. There are so many things GES will do. They will not seriously bring in the various church.
You mean consult?
As they should, yes.
Okay. Okay.
You know,
not only consult, but bring them to participate.
Exactly. You don't just write
in decision making.
Exactly. But now, if you call the regional managers of schools, they are struggling with GS, and there's little they can do, and there are more.
Back in the day, we used to be told, and I went to a mission school myself, that, well, if you're in a mission school, and I experienced it too, you're better disciplined, etc. But we still smoked pot. Okay, they call it marijuana or weed here in Ghana, etc. But of course, the discipline was 10. What difference does it make at all if a school is under a mission supervision or not?
Yes, we are having challenges, but despite the challenges we are having, you realize that still mission, especially second cycle institutions, almost all the second cycle institutions in this country, the best one, still belong to the churches because they will put their chaplains there. But it depends. You get some situations, you get some heads who will not allow the church's role to be played effectively. You know.
So you see that there's some level of animosity there. Or they are just not receptive.
You see, now the heads and all those, they report to GS, not to the churches. And so their allegiance will go more towards GS.
So their line of responsibility really is not towards
you. So if you don't get somebody who will say, I will go this way, I will listen to my church, then yes, you have a situation where the church will just be sidelined and you do what your director general, your regional director wants you to do as a staff of Ghana Education Service.
If the status quo remains, perhaps government is adamant, what happens?
We pray we don't get there. We pray, we know our government are listening government and they must listen. Else, in fact, recently they were changing the names of the school when they were having colleges of education. You know, some you have, say, Presbyterian Training College, Methodist, and all that. St.
Now they are
Mary's.
changing it.
And now they make it, if we say, Chebi College of Education, and then they drop, say, Presbyterian. If it's a Presby Training College, they drop Presby.
You don't like that?
Oh, my brother, I'm saying that the churches acquired the land, built the facilities, and government came in only to support. Will you allow that? The land belongs to you.
What difference does it make if your name is not there? That's all I'm asking you, Reverend Dr.
Names are very important, very significant. You take names out, you take my identity out. That's what it means. I have acquired my land, I've built my facilities, I'm running my school. You came in only to help me.
Well, you are doing it for God and country, so...
Yes, but I need respect. I need that recognition. I need my identity. And the churches have interest in building the schools. You know, one way also is for Christian education. So it's not just like I will just allow government to come in and even politicize everything. Things that I have done, you come, you take it over from me, and you use it for whatever interest.
Over the last couple of months, or some months in the last year, 2013, the hospitals that were run by the missions, okay, they had a difficulty with the way they were getting payments from the National Health Insurance Authority. And as a result of that, I believe 50 of them, they went on, was it a strike?
No, you see, in this country, one blessing we have had, we have what we call Christian Health Association of Ghana. The churches that have health facilities have come together, Methodist, Presby, Catholic, EP, Salvation Army, Baptist, and we try as much as possible that our staff don't embark on some kind of industrial action like strike. You may notice that the government hospitals may go on strike. The church hospitals run by the churches, we don't, our staff hardly embark on strike action. Now we are having problem with Ministry of Health, but we are still talking, so we want to slow down. But at the moment, for instance, National Health Insurance, government is in arrest about over 60 million Ghana cedis. But the facilities are still being run. Of course, it's becoming difficult for us. Now, this is what we are talking about. These hospital health facilities are run by the churches, not the government. You see, that's what we are saying, that if government will not respect, or GS will not respect the partnership, then leave us to run our schools like we run our hospitals.
Okay, we're taking a short break. When we come back, we'll have a lot more for you on AM Talk. We've been joined by George Osei-Bimpeh. He's the country director for Send Ghana. Good morning and thanks for joining us. We're just talking about the communique of the Christian Council of Ghana. Now, particularly also because after that very annual general meeting of the Christian Council, they came up with certain issues. Now, I want your thoughts on the subject of the advocacy they are making now for a return of those mission schools that previously were under them to be returned to the missions?
Okay, thank you very much. And then I want to congratulate the council for you know, a successful annual general meeting, and the content, I mean, the issues they have raised are very important. So I think we need to do some reflection as a country to question why they are making that you know, demand. I mean, some of us are young, but we have learned and read how we are going down as a country. And if we expect the church to play a certain role as you know, a vanguard of moral integrity or whatever that we want to, so we need to carve a niche for them in terms of developing the human asset, human resources of this country. And so if they see that they are not able to you know, maximize their potential as a result of that restriction that we have placed on, you know, the control on some of these churches, I think that for me, this is where we need to, this is the context that we have to provide for us to get that understanding. Why is it that government is so interested in controlling that? Is it because government is contributing to the you know, running of these schools? If government is contributing to the running of these schools, is it the case that when the products are out, they still do not contribute to national development, even if it is under the churches? I think that we get a better deal where we begin to instill some sense of discipline, some sense of, you know, nationalism and patriotism in people. We've been talking about you know, decay, or if you like, decay in patriotism in this country, but we haven't done some analysis to find out where this thing has come from. At least where people used to go to the mission schools, they were brought up to accept certain, you know, fundamental you know, behavior pattern that is expected of any responsible citizens. And for me, this is where we need to look at it, rather than to say that because I am paying, I should be controlling it. If government wants to control, we can still have the public schools, and we'll see the difference it makes. And I think that we need to listen to to them, and because this is not the first time we are hearing them make this you know, demand. It has been on and on and on. So we need to really sit down. It seems that we haven't had a very concrete, if you like, reply from government, and it is the call is always coming from the Christian Council or other religious institutions. So we need to sit down and see what are the issues and what we can do. If there were some problems, some lapses in the past, how do we avoid rather than to throw, you know, what do you call it, the baby with the water? I think that is for me, that is how we have approached it in the past, and we need to make a shift away from that.
Okay, now so, well, Reverend Dr. Oponi, we have to now continue the discussion on the issue of the health facilities under your care and the difficulties you're having with receipts as far as the care you give them under the National Health Insurance Authority. And you were making indications about how perhaps the relationship has been fraught with some difficulties because of the non-payment and the arrears, etc. How do you go then making sure that, well, all these are streamlined? Because even though these are concerns you have, they also affect the way you run the institutions.
Exactly. Like I said earlier on, at the moment, we have a standing bill, not less than 60 million Ghana cedis. All the Christian Health Association together, Catholic, Presby, Methodist, EP, Salvation Army, hospitals. Now the National Health Insurance is yet to pay work we have done more than 6-8 months, you know. And it affects because we also borrow. You know, you are talking about drugs. So some of our hospitals now, you go to the pharmacy section department, they are empty. You know, we are talking with Ministry of Health and want to believe the promises they've given to us will be fulfilled, so that we will not be pushed to a point where we will not go on strike, but we may not be able to accept a patient who walk into our facilities.
Well, you've been there before.
We were nearly, and then
because we had reports, especially in the Ashanti region, that some of your facilities were not treating patients or turning away patients.
We were pushed close there. And that's why we are saying now we are talking. You see, you will only be pushed there. It's not something, because our facilities are in the rural areas. And you see what you do as a ministry, you know. But then if you have outstanding bill, I'm talking about 60 million Ghana cedis. And we are church people, you see. And so where do you go for money? And the mainline churches... Huh? You said? The mainline churches, we have money, but our monies are into education, into health, and all that. But if you run a health facility and you have outstanding bill about 60 million Ghana cedis, you are near collapse. You know, so then you are forced to a position where the option left is I'll still run the hospital, but I may not be able to supply drugs, something we don't want to do.
Now, Mr. Bimpeh, is there a difficulty for you when the mission hospitals are having some of these difficulties with payments or their receipts of whatever they're supposed to be paid from the National Health Insurance Authority after treating patients?
Yeah, Roland, this is how I look at it. Many of their facilities are located in the hard-to-reach areas. These are areas where we are recording, if you like, useless maternal death. We have missed our target of 185 per 100,000 births. We are now hovering around 350. We have missed that target by, already we have missed it by 2015. So it's quite worrying when we have problems with some of these institutions that are delivering services at the, what do you call it, at the fringes, where poverty is, looking you in the face. But I want to put the issue into a broader perspective in terms of the sustainability or financial sustainability of the national health insurance. And I think that the discussion should be, how can we make the scheme sustainable? So the
missions hospitals also don't suffer.
Yes, like so it is not only, it's not only the mission hospitals, but I sympathize with them because they are delivering a unique service to a unique segment of our population, and that is how I want to look at it. So they may make some, if you like, noise today for them to attract government attention. Then we go the knee-jerk reaction, the way that we have been doing things, hard work measure, we pay them just a little, but we go to sleep. So the broader issue is that how do we make the national service scheme sustainable? You and I,
the national health insurance
the national health insurance scheme sustainable. You and I admit that this is a very good social intervention, pro-poor program that we cannot just afford to see it collapse. So my issue is that we need to really be serious to say that if we have to find a way to introduce even more progressive tax so that we can see how we support those in the rural areas who are doing farming yet who are suffering all the the diseases that can take lessen their life, so that we are sure of taking care of that segment of our population. In that case, we then have a holistic way of solving the problem of health financing, and for me that is the perspective that I look at.
You would want us to look at it in a holistic way, but particularly for the missions, when they have all these challenges with trying to make sure, well, they offset their debts with those that they collect their drugs and the other facilities from, and in making sure the sustenance in the way they manage and run the facilities before they get the receipts, whether it's quarterly, etc., based on what the law says, then it means that something needs to be done as a buffer before perhaps the resolution is gotten from government, so to speak.
No, I agree. I mean, we have to break the issue into short, medium, and the long term. I think in the medium term, in the short term, you want to ensure that you have released the money to them. But they will come back if you do not have a way of sustaining the scheme. They will come back one day to make a similar, issue a communique that will contain similar issue. So what I'm saying is that as we look for solutions in the short term, the medium and to long term solution is to make the scheme sustainable, because many of them have the intention to expand facilities, to go to new areas. But how do you make that kind of social investment if you are not sure of sustaining even the facility? And so it is good that we pay attention and quickly make sure that we release the money to them. But I'm saying that to make sure that we don't come back to square one, let us begin to see or support the authority to make the scheme sustainable financially.
A holistic or a national view of it. But you have raised all these concerns, and I'm sure you have been dialoguing with authorities as to how to find amicable solutions to the difficulty. The point is, currently the Health Insurance Authority may not be getting the remittances from government as it's supposed to be getting in terms of what the allocation should be based on what is paid. So you also don't get yours quickly as mission hospitals. How do you resolve that difficulty too?
There's a side of your question I don't know if that is the case.
No, that's a policy issue.
Yes, but we may not know. Let's talk about what we know. All that I know is I run health facility.
And you need your money.
And I need my money. Who is having the money and where is the money and all that? I don't know. And now I don't want to know. But what I want to know is that I have rendered a service to this country and somebody must pay us. And we have done it 6-8 months. We have not received our money. We've gone beyond 60 million Ghana cedis, and we can't continue. And so we need our money.
Okay, I have some of your comments on our Facebook page, Join News on TV, on Facebook, and Samora Owusueje said, I totally agree with the Christian Council. Those of us who attended mission schools had transformational lives. Oh, Samora, okay. I won't say give me a break. Good. Suleimana Abdul Sisu, and it's not a good idea because the churches will discriminate as it will be limited to only Christians. No, I guess it applies to, when they say mission schools, I guess the Ahmadiyas and all have all been taken over by government.
In fact, Tia Ahmadiyya in Kumasi, was one of two of Presby moderators attended Tia Ahmadiyya.
Good.
Reverend Dr. Osei-Bimpeh, former moderator, former product of Tia Ahmadiyya Muslim School. Dr. Frimpong Manson, former moderator. So the Muslims don't discriminate when it comes to...
No, even that their schools also have been taken over by government.
Muslim schools are taking Christian. And if you go to Presec, Every Girls, if you go to Prempeh College, if you go to St. Rose's, if you go to the Christian universities, Presby University and all, Central University, we have Muslims there. So that idea, this is what we have been able to do in this country that elsewhere in some other countries they've not been able to do. The integration in this country has been wonderful.
And Abdul or Suleimana, what I was also trying to put across was the fact that when we're talking about mission schools, we're not particularly talking about Christian schools. We're talking about all religious schools. So perhaps maybe we need to broaden the term and say religious schools. We're talking because the religious schools, even the schools belonging to Muslims also have been
and that is the debate on the floor of Parliament. Parliament is not discussing only Christian schools. They call them mission schools. And when they talk about mission school, they mean all Christian, Muslims, any other.
Okay. Isaac Osei says, will they pay the teachers better salaries than the government? Well, government will be responsible for paying the teachers. But the point is, as far as the supervision is concerned, just like, I don't know, Isaac, whether you went to a mission school, you would have seen that, well, they were paid by government, but the supervision oversight rested with the Roman fathers, the moderators, etc. there. Not anything at all discipline. Oof. This brofo is different. Stephen Ajimang, we have historical evidence that those who attended mission schools have impacted a lot in our society and respect and discipline, but they should not impose their doctrine and beliefs on non-members of their denominations. And that's from Ajimang. He's put there, dummy. Okay. Simon Salmon, I think that will help improve teaching and learning in our schools. The good for nothing so-called... okay. I guess we are going overboard. We'll discuss the issue about morality and the respect we have for elders, etc. And I know it's part of your communique as well. Now, let's move to that before we go on to some other subjects. The subject you raise in your communique about you feel a declining state of morality, a declining state of respect of the general society to leadership. How do you come to that very conclusion when now society is the best we have ever experienced in our civilization?
Yes, maybe you have in mind the democratic governance, the openness, media, spread of media. So
we even have the latest technologies.
Yes. I think that is what you have in mind. But there's strong language, there's hate speech in our public discourse. You know, yes, people are free to talk. But for instance, towards our leaders, you see, you can't ask me to deliver my best as a leader and at the same time hurt me. We can't hurt the people who lead us and expect them to deliver their best.
For example, the president, well, is quote-unquote insulted in the media every day. Well, we don't call that insult currently. Maybe,
yeah,
we call it somebody who is confident and trying to air his view.
If you normalize abnormal situation, you get what you are talking about. If something is wrong, you can have hate speech. But if you repeat it and you repeat it and you repeat it, though abnormal, it becomes normal. It becomes acceptable, a norm of society. But it's wrong. The way we are talking to our leaders, those in politics, those in religious leadership, those in traditional leadership, somebody must help us identify that we are developing a culture of insult. And it's becoming acceptable. It shouldn't be. You see, if you find, you use the president, but assuming you have a father, and some of the words people are using now in media, especially the phone in, you know, and these serial callers and food soldiers, and the choice of words. We need decency in public discourse. We need it, and even though it's becoming acceptable, we need to accept the fact that strong language, hate speech, can't be acceptable anywhere.
Now, George, Dr. Opuni seems to be saying the fact that we're even accepting what is already wrong is wrong in itself. Now, for example, I'll give you a quotation, and I know my director will put it on air. This very comment by Simon Salmon, which says that the good-for-nothing so-called Minister of Education is doing nothing like ever before.
You addressed a university professor. She was a vice-chancellor, Cape Coast University.
So
she doesn't deserve
this person could have said the minister is doing nothing.
Okay, so the good-for-nothing so-called Minister of Education could have read.
The minister is not doing anything about it. Whatever the problem is.
Nana is your mother, and a former vice-chancellor, Cape Coast University. She's a mother, and you may not know even the background.
She's a top-notch intellectual.
Decent scholar, and you may not even know the background of this person. Nana is already running, running around everywhere to make sure the examination thing is not that. The next thing you hear is somebody is calling you the word, I don't want to repeat it. Now, how do you feel? And you still want this woman to deliver her best. And worse like this, he's a human being.
So that's what you're talking about?
Yes, how can you hurt this woman and still expect her to deliver her best? But this thing is gradually being normalized. Now you hear this and you say, oh, but it's normal. You hear it every day.
Mr.
You read it.
At what point do you misconstrue confidence and the need to uphold tenets of the Constitution of free speech and make sure people hold leadership accountable to whatever has been promised? Now, particularly in this very dispensation where we have multi-party democracy and there's campaigning and there's a lot more promises by the top political leaders.
You see, we are very quick at using certain concepts and words that we do not understand. Confidence.
Are you throwing that back to me? Or
I mean, society. That's what I'm saying. Society, because somebody will say that I am exercising my right as citizen, and I am what you call drawing inspiration from freedom of inspiration clause or whatever, freedom of expression clause in the Constitution. But you see, you don't build confidence out of vacuum. Etiquette, decorum, all of these things, because where we got this concept, you don't go and get a young man getting up to insult an elderly person. Even you don't get somebody insulting, if I may be a bit rough here, you don't inspect even your co-equal. You don't even do that, because decency, I mean, I have to say that, Roland, I agree with you, I disagree with you, and my reasons are that you have not done X, Y, Z. I don't have to say use certain things, because if we are building an atmosphere of dialogue, you know, participatory decision making, you want to create an atmosphere where everybody's view is respected, or where you go, you make constructive, you know, contribution or criticism to the issue at stake. So if I am coming to you to say that the way you are approaching your program is not the best, and I begin by insulting you, you will be very defensive. There's no way that you are going to pay attention to the suggestions that I will make. So even if you want your suggestions to be taken on board, if you are very serious about it, the way you want to do it is to engage. And if you're engaging, you do so in a manner of, you know, respecting whoever you want to target. So
because, for example, the Christian Council said we must criticize our leaders objectively, devoid of vilification. What's the meaning of that?
Yeah, you see, I can say that I do not agree with the appointment of the president. The president, I think that this person has that background, or this person has no track record. But I wouldn't have to say that, excuse my word, you sleep with the person or you do. I don't have the evidence.
Okay. Now, what do you think is leading to all this? That we have a situation, instead of people talking normal, they are very derogatory.
You see, if you trace the political history of this country, we are coming from all kinds of military revolutions, and in some of the revolution, you know, go sit down for them cheaters every day and all that. And now we find ourselves in a new era, you know, a new dispensation. Sometimes it seems to me like now we have been freed from whatever all these years, and we've been able to discover our voices, and therefore people feel now we can speak, we can talk, and we therefore can say anything. We are maturing in our democracy, but one of the things we must know is that we have new opportunities, and how to handle that new opportunity very important. If years ago we didn't have that, and now we have it, and therefore we want to believe that what it means is I can open my mouth and there's something we call verbal diarrhea. You see, you open your mouth and you think anything must come out of your it shouldn't be. So yes, we have new freedoms. Media houses all over. You can pick a mobile phone and call. It is wonderful, but the parameters must be there. We must draw positive boundaries. That public discourse is an art. The decency must come, and maybe I must use your platform to plead with hosts of breakfast show and such, that there are certain people you must not give them oxygen. You see?
You mean you must not give them the platform to.
Okay.
Okay.
Please.
Okay.
And the owners must also support us. We need decency in public discourse. And if we don't take it, before we are aware, we are normalizing abnormal practices in this country. And you may not know the day that they will get out of hand. And we may discourage. Gradually, there are decent researchers, scholars, who can contribute to national issues, but they are all going backwards, because how can you address a full university professor, a former vice chancellor, with words like that? So such decent people feel that I better stay at home and do my consultancy and all that. And at the end of the day, we suffer as a nation. So those who have platforms must also make sure they just gradually push all of us to the realm of decency. You can't just attack people freely like that.
Dr. Opuni made mention of parameters. Now, how then do we also bring in issues of structures? The structures that will make sure these that we have identified could be nipped in the bud or kept, so to speak, even if we can't stop them at all.
I think that well, we can start one with the institutions that regulate for example, the media scene.
Okay.
Some of us are
the media is always blamed for a lot of the things.
Yeah, you see, whilst for example, multimedia may have their own standard, another organization thinks that because they are, prosecuting a particular agenda, they would allow that because that is what thrills their followers. So we have a very fragmented, if you like, agenda. An agenda that doesn't serve the national interest. So that is one thing. If you can have a situation where all owners forget about national media organization, because they seem to have their own challenges. All owners will have a very diverse principle, but they fit into the national agenda, something that reflects the Ghanaian, what do you call personality, the Ghanaian. Because all of these things started from somewhere. And one thing that is happening is that society seems to be glorifying some of these things. Because if you do it, then they say that this person can challenge. This person can do that, so let's push that person.
And you think that has also permitted our political discourse?
And that is why we have, that is why, because if you find somebody doing the wrong thing, you see that people massing, support, and that person is hailed as a hero. And I think that if we do not discourage this and say that you're on your own, if you do something that threatens human security, national security, that degrade the development of this country. And we might not take some of these things serious. But if we can go to countries where they find themselves in a very difficult situation, some of these things started on this mild note. And people did not pay attention. Even when people raised alarm, nobody paid attention because it served their interest. But when it explodes, at that point, if the bubble bursts, at that point, we will not be able to make it will shift position from even political to something else. And at that point, we may not be able to contain that. And that will take us back to about 200 years or something. Because if you visit countries where they have had some of these challenges, even 10 years, 20 years after problem is solved, you see that they have retrogressed in a way that they will not be able. So the National Media Organization is one, and I think that here is where I appeal to the Christian Council, because even among the churches, you see some of them fighting using the same media, using the same media. Of indiscipline among themselves. Among the I wouldn't know whether they are members of the council, because I know that majority of such people are not members. How do we? And I think they raised that point about registration of churches. We need to take that one serious, in as much as people have the right to
Because talking
worship.
about churches, I have to come to you, Reverend Dr. Opuni. The subject that you talked about, beyond the registration, that your own concerns about the massive display of opulence by especially the current, infantile churches that we have now, right? I don't want to say unorthodox churches and all. The opulence displayed by the leaders, etc. How is that a concern to you?
No, you see, I'm a pastor, but my understanding is God's interest or God's plan, purpose for me is over and above my personal comfort. Not that God will not take good care of me, but the purpose of God calling me is over and above my personal comfort. As if to say, I must be there for others. That is the essence of ministry. Now, if you look at the mainline churches, not that we don't have money, you see, but we will rather give our money to education, to health,
Because?
That is why I said the purpose of my calling is over and above my personal comfort. I have people in my church, they can have access to education, they can have access to good health services, and then I multiply vehicles. Any latest car in town, I must taste it.
As a church leader,
there's nothing wrong.
There's nothing wrong.
There's nothing wrong.
If you as an Orthodox church leader, you decide not to buy the latest BMW, you decide not to buy the latest four-wheel car on the road, that shouldn't be a concern for another church leader who feels that, like what is happening in America, and I've seen that it's been replicated by many pastors across the world, televangelists, who have made the argument that, well, Christ made Christians prosperous as well. And there's nothing in the Bible that said that the head of the Christian church doesn't need to be successful.
No. You see, it depends on how you define ministerial success. Yeah. If ministerial success
well, I preach, and the life of people, they come to give me great wealth. There's nothing wrong with that.
That is not it. Business people may think and talk like that, but we are not business people. You see, business person can think me, myself, my own, and I. You know, a pastor shouldn't think like
How
that.
should a pastor think?
No, a pastor must, you see, it's like your joy is my joy. You understand? So we are there that because of us, in us and through us, God will reach out to others. So the more I have people who can't have 2 meals a day
in the church,
in my church.
But I have 5.
And a business person can think like that, but the pastor must also be thinking about that poor, because we serve a Lord who will always.
So what should the pastor do then? Not spend the wealth?
No. We don't want to attack anybody.
Yeah. No. We're talking
but the point we are making is the issue about human dignity must be at the center of church work. That the church must be there for the oppressed. The church must be there for the poor, the vulnerable in society. That is the caution we are. So pastors who have whatever can use it. But let us also know we have the poor and needy among us. And it is our spiritual responsibility. A business person may not have that mandate. But for us, we have been called to serve the world, to serve the nation. And therefore, we are just reminding ourselves that we must be there. We are in Easter, you know, and the essence is sacrifice. That we must die a little for others to live. That is all that we are talking about. And our pastors must put the needs of the vulnerable in society at the center of our budget.
Well, you go to church, I'm sure, because in Ghana we're all religious,
yeah.
or in Africa we're all religious.
Yeah.
The point is, many are leaving the Orthodox churches for the non-Orthodox. The latest one that promised prosperity.
Yeah.
They preach success, gospel, etc. And we all want that because we're ambitious and we want to be successful. Okay. Why not my church leader?
Roland, if I was using money and that money I worked for it, that is my money, and that is where I am a business. That is why I will be a businessman. And so if you are a pastor and you are riding in that car, the question you need to ask yourself, where did the money come from?
It was given to me as a gift.
That's a different issue. And I know that there are some good men of God who will get all those cars, yet they will give it to people. I'm not saying that they should go and have, but know that the prosperity that Jesus Christ talks about is not this prosperity of the world. So, Roland, if you are able to eat a day, 3 square whatever a day, that is enough.
There are some who don't get at all.
That is where you need to think about those people.
There are some who can pay school fees.
That is why you need to think about those. They don't need to come to you.
There are some who can take care of their health.
Fantastic. That is why they don't have to come to you. I watch TV and I see that some people give only when somebody, through a so-called deliverance, the person says, and I am poor, and the person says, oh, give the person this. You have to have an institutionalized way of supporting the poor in your church. Whether you have to pass it through education, entrepreneurial, skills development, and so on and so forth. So it is unjustifiable for any pastor to say that because God or Jesus Christ has said that I am entitled to prosperity. And the reason why we have problems with that, you see, people are preaching prosperity irrespective of how people get that wealth. So you see so-called Christians in organizations who do all sorts of things to bring the nation down, to bring organization down, but they will go and give so much in church. And pastor, we here have to be bold to say that you don't need to glorify people because they have money. We don't give the first pew to them.
Rev, how do you think that the concerns you are raising as a Christian council is also contributing to the pervasive decadence of morals in our society that also perhaps permeates the top leadership to the grassroots?
Let me go a little bit back. If you go to Ivory Coast and you want to set up a church, you must belong to one of the ecumenical bodies. Ecumenical bodies means maybe say Ghana Pentecostal Council, Charismatics, Christian Council, and all that. In this country, you can wake up tomorrow morning, run and set up a church in classroom under a mango tree, and the laws of this country will allow you. And you don't need to be part of any of the Christian bodies. And so monitoring becomes a problem. code of ethics. You see, churches, I mean, about 19 mainline churches are members of the Christian Council of Ghana. And if you are a member, you are regulated, you are monitored. That we have code of ethics. Somebody we will meet. And you'll be asked questions. What is happening in your church? If you're a member of Ghana Pentecostal Council, if you are a Ghana Catholic Secretariat, if you belong to the Charismatic, somebody will question your action. And the Bible says that iron sharpens iron. But if you have a situation that you don't report to anybody, nobody has the right to ask you questions. And that is why we are, I must say also that the laws in this country allow people to rally around without anybody's permission and all that, you know. So now you have churches that when it comes to monitoring and regulation, it's becoming very difficult. But those who are in a communical council, you get somebody who will just tap your shoulders, say, brother, slow down.
Slow down. The way you're going. Okay. I always have people, not only church leaders, etc., who come to discuss the newspapers. And since we're here, these are all issues we find in the news all the time. 45 containers of used fridges have been seized at the Tema Harbour. And on page 16 of the Daily Graphic, it says that the containers of the 45 used fridges were seized, and as a result of that they were confiscated. We have 5,000 pieces, and we know that because of concerns of CFCs, the regulation worldwide has been that we don't need to be using them, but we have people, business people, who imports them into this country, and so the country has become a dump site. You think is the best way we have to go about it?
You see, you should have asked another question. I mean, these things don't come to our market through the bush. They come through our ports.
This one were destroyed in a port. There are some already that are in the system.
So how come that we have all this? We are all talking about climatic changes, ozone layers, and all that. And yet, some people have the ability of going through all the immigration, whatever, and spread such materials at Aboseokai. How come? We need to do that question. And then we need to do public education also. Maybe people must diversify their capitals. There are so many things we can do. Sometimes it's like, if I don't bring in this good, what else? There's nothing I can do as a business person. We need to enforce our laws. It's painful, though, for somebody to go to that extent. How much money will go into only to come for you to lose your capital? But as a country, we only need to let do education on what the opportunities we have as a people, so that somebody can know that, okay, I can't do this, but I have several options. But my real worry has something to do with those who are controlling our borders and all that, that they allow people to come in and then they seize them and destroy them.
The point is that you don't let the person import in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, we had a law banning importation of these fridges.
Actually, we have it.
We have, that's what I mean. I mean, we promulgated it a long time ago. This is not the first time I am seeing this. I have cited, I live on the Sprinters Road, I have cited several trucks cutting these fridges from the port.
Really?
Yes. So this is very surprising in the first place, but commendable that somebody is beginning to wake up. That's the point. So it means
if you are not being selective,
that's the point. That's why I'm coming to Reverend.
Depending on the color you wear, somebody can go through the same.
Maybe that very day somebody had already.
Exactly. That's the point.
But one.
That's the point I am making. That somebody had that audacity to import in the first place, knowing that that importation of fridges of this nature have been banned. So we need not to be selective in the way we apply the law, because I have seen those things. So if for the first time we are reporting this is very important. This is good, commendable, but they should keep their eyes open and take it from where a Reverend left off, that we need to let people know that we are being serious about enforcement, so that this is something that does more harm to our environment than good to an individual who is looking for money. If that person needs to still continue with importation, how do we link that person to huge multinationals that are producing fridges, so that that person can be supported? This is how you build national champions. So if the context is, if you don't look at it in that context and you say just also ban them, of course the issue of what do I eat also comes in. Let's build their capacity to even access some of these facilities, link them to some of these in that they have the capital. And if that person can import that much, that same person can import even lesser of good, quality fridges that he can sell it quickly and then be able to expand that business. Let's look at it that way.
Now, Doc, is the best way to deal with the current problem, if it is a problem at all, if not a problem that has been created by ourselves and the institutions that are supposed to be responsible? Now, these are supposed to be outmoded out there. Yes. In the Western countries, it can't be used. Yeah. It can't be used. Yeah. But now it is dumped somewhere, and the same people package it in a container, put it on a cargo ship. Of course, whoever has asked for the freight and ordered is a native, or I'm sure does business around here. Yeah. Is the best way. Can't we just return it back to the country of origin?
No. Maybe I'm a pastor and I want to stay. There are some people who are supposed to handle such policy issues and such details in issues about migration and all that. But we must be serious with ourselves as a people. There are life-threatening things that in this country we joke with. You see, now I'm a business person. You go for products that are harmful, but you make money. So you go out and you find a way of convincing yourself and either confusing all of us that, what they are saying is not true. You can use this free, don't mind them. We've been using it all these years. But do you know how many people have gone to their graves out of cancer and all that such materials also are produced? So let's be serious with ourselves as a people. But my worry is how selective we have also been in this country. Not that we don't know what is wrong, but there are some people who can do the wrong things, and either we close our eyes or we open our eyes but decide not to see, and there's nothing. Then there are innocent people who will repeat the same wrong, and we blow them front page things like this. But I want to believe what we are recording here, maybe from today we are going to see more of this. Else I would say there are other fridges in town. And all those officers who arrested this particular person should go to the market
and conduct a swoop.
Exactly. Then we know we are being serious. But if you pick one person and you give him a front page things, and tomorrow morning I also go to the harbor and I see a truck coming to the market with this, then I ask myself what is actually happening. And that's my worry.
Okay. I don't know whether this one could be said to be innocent. Daily Graphic says a woman 36 arrested at Kutika International Airport for carrying $650,000 worth of heroin. That's the street value estimate. Usually when they'll go and dilute it and they sell it more. So and the woman is said to be, or the suspect is said to be Mercy Osei-Bimpeh. She was coming from Tanzania and concealed the thing in these rubbers or polythene in her traveling bag. I thought, well, we're making efforts to discourage people, but according to the UN, though, the drug trade has become a huge business around the world, and it's destroying lives. That is, if it's used in transit, some is left locally for consumption, etc. It's destroying lives. What do you make of?
No, I think first thing is a commendation to the law enforcement agency, Narcotics Control Board, for keeping vigilance. There are a lot of slippages, but if we are able to make this, if you like, catch, that is that is positive. But you see, the point you make, the West Coast in Africa here has virtually become a drug transit point, and this is something that requires collaborative effort between all these countries to work together, because these guys are always ahead of the security agencies. They are very smart. They have very sophisticated way of operating, and so you cannot win the war against drug trafficking if you are not matching them, or at least if you cannot be ahead of them, you just need to be at par with them. So it is very good commendation, but we want to see more of this, more of vigilance because our ports, like entry point, are too porous, and she might be unlucky. Others are going through the system.
I'm sure that very day.
Yeah.
Somebody.
Yeah.
What do you make of it? I mean, people's insatiable need to engage in this. Well, it brings a lot of money, though.
Yeah.
Good money.
And they will be sitting at the, in the first pew.
Good money.
Oh. Now, why do you? This is the second time you are. You see,
Reverend, this is not to you.
Anyway.
No, we're talking about. We're talking about drug smuggling.
Yes, you see, let's accept that we have a problem, and it's a universal. You raise it. You see, the drug networking. It's very sophisticated thing, and even if they can deceive all the law enforcement, they can also deceive pastors.
Yeah, of course.
These are smart people. It's not like you keep talking about front seat. It's not like, I don't know, maybe you can have a typical example, but I don't think pastors who want to go to church and they are looking for people like, say, who are the let me give you front. It doesn't work like that, even though the churches also need support. But let's make decent resources. Let's make money that you can come out and tell your children and grandchildren how you made your money.
Well, I'm sure many of them have frontal businesses, right? So that's how they make their money.
You are covering up.
They always cover up. So that's how your children will know you are making your money.
I think we can look at it also in terms of the implication for national security. I mean, you have young people who can
There's any implication at all?
Yeah,
I mean, the drug is just transited. So
no, it's not that. People are using the consumption rate is going up. And that is why we need to, the fact that somebody can take money and go and kill somebody, do you think that that person would do it with that influence of some of these drugs? Yes. We have that. So we don't need to say that people are transiting. Our place is it is also a major consumption, if you like, destination. So we need to look at that, because one day if any unscrupulous guy gets these young guys to say, let's do X, Y, Z, that will threaten national security, they will do it. And we often hear people do all this insurrection under the influence of alcohol, what you call drugs. And so we need to look at it in that way, and rather not be concerned about how it gets out, but how it gets in, and how people should be prevented from even consuming in the first place. Many people know that, and that comes to how we get our security apparatus to strengthen their intelligence gathering, because we live among these people and people don't feel confident enough to even report it, because sometimes they are afraid that you might be given out. And look, these people can be very deadly.
And you see, there are other drug-related challenges apart from the use of drugs. I mean, if you talk about Colombia and those countries, they are in strong network. If they want to overthrow government, with this, they have the money, they have the contacts, they have the networks, they have
pump. Pump the money.
So it's not just even though it's not good, the use of even the drugs and making money, but they can destabilize institutions.
I remember, I think the last month there was an arrest and I think a swoop that was made by the Mexican and the U.S. authorities. And the drug baron, I mean, the cartel, the head of the cartel, he had gold guns and they found $22 billion in his house.
Yes.
$22 billion.
A tunnel.
Then
so many
Then the ones around
away.
The world too, another. I said, gee, I got $200,000.
And they run armies on their own.
Yes, so it's not just.
Okay, so we know that it's big business, and sometimes people can be easily enticed, right? God, I shouldn't be enticed. Okay, so Daily Guide. I know religious. You don't speak politics, but no, we're just national politics.
It's very difficult for some of us. Okay, go ahead.
You called me to discuss my communique.
No. This one.
National issues.
I know your communique. Last one. This is what we call ambush journalism. We won for MPP Afoko. Now let's talk about political discourse in this country. We're not necessarily talking about MPP, but the way the discourse is, and the way perhaps the politicians malign each other just because of a contest. I mean, I have to start with you. Not necessarily on the moral grounds, but the way perhaps it doesn't bode well for society.
Let's thank God the MPP has come out of this conference. I mean, proud to it. We heard accident upon accident, and we thank God the good Lord has seen them through. So do we pray for all the other political parties as they get ready also for their conferences. Why are you laughing? You are happy.
I know you didn't want to comment on the subject, so
yes.
you're feeling relaxed. That's all.
Yes. So we do the. It shouldn't have been, but now we live in a country. Pastors are being tagged. They are looking for who is a pastor belonging to party A, and now
which
even when you even pray.
So.
They want to find out whether it's MPP prayer or NDC prayer and all kinds of things. So now the churches, we must remain neutral. We must always be neutral.
And you're always neutral?
Yes.
Really?
But then the way the politicians are also smart people. And they are playing game with religious bodies, you know, and it's not helping anybody. And that's why these days we become extra careful in commenting on political, pure party things in public. But the verification you mentioned, you are a family. And sometimes you must know, I've heard one of them saying that you are giving us ammunitions. So you must be careful how much ammunition you give to your opponent. But they are all the same, I must say. Now it's MPP. Tomorrow when NDC and CPP, I may not be surprised that they all give ammunition to their opponents. But now that is over, they must find a way of healing the wounds that they have created.
No, you talk about political discourse, so I would talk about political discourse. And my fear for this country is that if we do not desist from 4-year campaign, you see, the very day a government is running, they begin to see how they can win power the next 4 years. The very day somebody goes into opposition, that person begins to work towards 4 years. Elsewhere, the best thing that people have done that have created wealth for the country is that all those activities go to rest immediately somebody is elected. So that we all come to the table to see how, at least in the next 3 years, we can make this country succeed. Roland, if my work as somebody in opposition is to, malign, sabotage, make sure that nothing works in this country, and one day I win power, are we not at square one? So that the same problem that I did not help the other person solve, that problems are there. But if we can have a political discourse, a political atmosphere in which there is consensus building, and Reverend, this you communicate, make that point, there's consensus building. People do not necessarily look at how they can entrench themselves in power or how they can get power by fair or foul means, but how can we succeed as country in the next 3 years, so that after the 3 years everybody begins to campaign for power. If we can cultivate that kind of culture in this country, we will make progress. At the moment, there's so much polarization. People are so much interested in their party first. That is where we have problem with patriotism and nationalism. People put their party or probably their tribe or ethnic group first before they even think about the nation Ghana. And if we continue to have this, segmented society, the problems we have will be there, because the next time the government, the ruling party is in opposition, they'll also be looking at ways to make Ghana ungovernable, and we are the ones who will suffer. So it's serves the interest of those of us who vote them into power to say that enough is enough. We want to see you demonstrate that you are making contribution to this country, whether you're in power or whether you are out of power. It is only when we begin to do this, and this requires, a critical mass of what you call it, some civil society activism, for us to tell them that you cannot take us for a ride again. Government cannot take us for a ride. Opposition political parties cannot take us for a ride. At the moment, you don't hear alternatives coming from opposition parties. All that they do, criticize and criticize. You don't hear government also showing what they are doing or what they are doing to solve problems, and so that we are the ones floating. And this kind of thing doesn't help the country. Your
comments will be the last comment, because I think you are speaking for the Reverend. He is afraid to always on the podium they'll say, I want on national TV.
But that's true. It makes it quite worrying for those of us watching and watching observing. Observing from non-partisan
people like you, the floating voter. But next will say you people are the floating voters.
Yeah.
And
I wish that everybody will become a floating voter, so that the politician will not.
There's no way in the world that
it's a wish. I think that we can commit to prayer.
There's no way in the world that we have everybody are floating
If we can have a critical mass, that's not the point I'm making.
But where, if we have a critical mass,
it begins from today.
If we have a critical mass, then this way the elections.
We begin from today that we begin to get citizens who ask government relevant questions, who ask political parties, opposition, yes, opposition's relevant questions. Well, what do you bring to the table? Do you want to wait till you get power? So what do we lose as a country in the time that you are looking for power? If we can get people with that good intention, then we know that we are in business.
NGO man, they always do advocacy. So they have been given the mandate by society to question and talk. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. We've had in the studio George Osei-Bimpeh. He's a country director for Send Ghana. Thanks for speaking to us this morning. It's a privilege.
Thanks for inviting us.
I'm more privileged. Reverend Dr. Osei-Bimpeh is the General Secretary for the Christian Council of Ghana, and they just concluded the annual general meeting of the council, and they came out with I believe a 64-point communique. Long. We couldn't discuss all the issues here because they even had concerns about marijuana legalization and a lot more issues that we haven't even touched. GMOs, economic partnership agreement. You know, Christian Council of Ghana, almost like ECOWAS now, right? Okay, so thanks for speaking to us. And it's a privilege to have you. And also a privilege for you also contributing to the subject matters of discussion for the morning through our social network pages. On Facebook, you've been joining us on Join News on TV, and also through the short code 1760. Would have to say that it's a wrap for AM Talk, but still we have a lot more on the AM show.